again when I was chef there. But Anthony's from South Florida. He has a home here in Mount Holly. He's been with Miami NBC, affiliated with them, Channel 6, for about 40 years. And Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these. I'm just trying to go off some things I saw and some things I remember. He's involved with numerous charities, including the Dan Marino Foundation, Boys and Girls Club, Make-A-Wish, and St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Sits on many boards, some for educational, some for sports. And he was instrumental in securing the Super Bowl dates for South Florida in football. One of his newest projects, and he'll be able to speak about that today as well as other things, is the Baby Boomer Report. Most of us here are baby boomers, or the greatest generation. We are all familiar with that time frame. You can find those reports on YouTube, Facebook, and at babyboomerreport.com. Lots of great information. I got a kick out of the one. It was what your first car. Had one thing about people's first cars. Some guy talking about his Impala that he had, 68 Impala or something. I had a 69 Grand Prix. But anyways, he also had some audio ones too. Some of his guests in the past have been Gayle King from CBS, I believe, morning show. Cousin Brucey, Julio Iglesias, the singer, and list goes on. So make sure if you had a chance, check out that. We can get you information if you want to check out the report. But welcome, Anthony. Do a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we'll have a little Q&A afterward. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm honored. I know you started out by saying that I'm from South Florida, and that's kind of where our base of operation was and has been for a number of years. And we were very fortunate to work for NBC. We were an owned and operated station. So while we were based out of South Florida, that was kind of our, operational spot. We literally flew the world representing the network at NBC. But, in 1983, right after, actually right before I was going to go to the Olympics in Los Angeles, my soon-to-be wife, who now we have been married, Roseanne and I have been married going on 30 years with 2 children. We took a flyer as a recommendation and came and visited Vermont. And we South Florida, we still kind of use that as because it's been there so long. But we now consider this really our home. We love Mount Holly, we love Belmont, we love Ludlow, and Kevin, you know how I feel about. I still get chills. How I feel about Vermont. We don't rent our home. We don't. We take care of our own land. We do what we can to involve ourselves in the community with all community activities. We try to stay involved. This is why doing the Rotary today is so important to me, because when my professional life, my first really club that I joined was the Rotary Club. So I have a real affinity and a real passion for that, but I have a real passion for Vermont and what Vermont stands for and its people. I love it. I just love the people, and I can't say enough about it. I just cannot say enough about it. In fact, I hate driving around in my car that has a Florida plate. I want to put a Vermont plate on it. So if any of you know how to get one, let me know. But thank you, Kevin, for having me. I didn't know, ladies and gentlemen who are here today, if you all just ran out of guests to have a speaker, because when I got the call, it was like, oh, okay, yeah. But I'm not real good about talking about myself, to be honest with you, in terms of my career. But Kevin asked me to do this. So what I will do is kind of give you a Cliff Notes version, and let's save some time if you guys want to answer ask me some questions with some of the people I've chatted with and some of the events I've covered. But I was very fortunate to spend 40 years with NBC. And as I said, travel the world from Tokyo to Berlin to London to California to Cuba to cover the arrival of the Pope for the first time. Covered over 26 Super Bowls, national championships for college football, for college baseball, National Hockey League Stanley Cup Finals, Final Four, World Series, NBA Finals, you name it pretty much, and Olympic Games as well, whether it was Los Angeles or Atlanta. was actually doing a broadcast for all of the NBC West Coast affiliates in the same spot. 5 minutes, actually. We left 5 minutes after the bomb went off in the spot in Atlanta during the Olympic Games. So we just missed that literally by 5 minutes. Did a national sports show for NBC called the George Michael Sports Machine with George Michael. I don't know if any of you are big sports fans who may have seen that or watched that. I understand there's a Dolphin fan in this group. I don't know if he or she is on the call today, but
Amen.
hi, Jimmy. I've heard a lot about you from Kevin, and I covered the Dolphins exclusively for 40 years, including the 17-0 season. In fact, just the other day, I got a package for I don't know how long you've been a fan, but I got a package from Mercury Morris that he sent me something that he wanted to get out of his house and put in my house.
Oh,
So,
my goodness.
but that's kind of I've interviewed 2 sitting presidents, one of which I interviewed in the Oval Office. I got this interview world leaders, literally from around the world, covered inaugurations and made the pitch for the Super Bowls in front of the 32 NFL owners. Got a chance to spend time with them on a number of occasions, and just very blessed to meet some incredible people and incredible sports figures, including Muhammad Ali, Jesse Owens. Spent a lot of time with all of them. Spent a lot of time with Muhammad Ali, an extremely wonderful guy. Spent months and months on end being with him pretty much every day. So that's kind of like a little snapshot of some of the things that I've been able to accomplish and able to do. But most importantly, I really loved what I did. I have, like I said, great opportunities, and the people within my workspace and workplace, whether it was Bob Costas or Jim Nance or Bryant, not Bryant Gumbel, but his brother, Greg Gumbel, to be able to, Leslie Visser, Dick Stockton, to be able to work and deal, Mitch Albom, the great author now, who I'm sure many of you know. I'm trying to think of some of the other people. There's just been an enormous amount of people in my life that I've been able to spend time with and work with. Mike Lupica, who writes for the New York Post. So in fact, I was in Manchester, Vermont, actually going through to stop for a cup of coffee and some donuts from Mrs. Murphy's Donuts, and ran into Mike Lupica in Manchester. And he looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "Well, I guess I could ask you the same question." This was last summer, and his daughter would be in competition every year at the Dorset Horse Show. So, so anyway, that's just a little bit. And if any of you have some questions or whatever, we can go on, or I can get into chat or talk about a moment. But Kevin, I thought I'd kind of tee it up that way and see maybe we could get a little round robin going and what we can find out from people. And don't be shy, because Jim, I'm going to defer to Kevin since he is the host of this. But Jim, I'm going to hit you next. I'm sure you got some questions you want to ask.
He might be with a customer right now. He doesn't have his video up, so he was going to go in and out and come back in as soon as his customer's out. But Mark, you have a question?
I do. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Hi, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Same.
I see you have a nice guitar back there. Are you a guitarist?
Depends on the day.
Depends on the day. Any day that ends in Y, you're a guitarist. Maybe that works. Who's your favorite artist, a guitar artist?
Jeff Beck.
Yeah, well, you can't beat that, right?
West Montgomery, you know?
Yeah.
Just a lot of them.
We'll have to have you play at Belmont on the Green, when we start doing those.
Yeah, I do a lot of music stuff around here. Not much lately, but anyway. Hey, what do you miss about the day-to-day work? Do you completely retired, or do you do some work as well?
I'm completely retired from that world. I did it for 40 years, and my wife and I thought maybe it was time to call it. We wanted to call it, Mark, but before the industry called it on us, right? I was about to turn 60. I was born in 1950, and remember born in a very Italian family. And I remember my folks telling me the story about how Joe DiMaggio had been offered the largest contract ever offered to a baseball player in his prime, and he retired. And he said he wanted to retire in a way where people will remember how great he was. And then I went on to meet DiMaggio and spend time with DiMaggio and actually become really good friends with DiMaggio. And it always stuck with me. And we thought, well, let's call it a day being on TV, because it was very similar to a life of an athlete, right? Because your skills, you don't want your skills to diminish, whether, you have to be able to think on your feet, you have to be able to ad lib, you have to be able to react to breaking news, especially now with the way things are going. And like it or not, visual impact is important, right? So if you start to age and, you're sort of a daughter, I've seen people in my industry who I have a great respect for, who unfortunately hung on way too long, right? So we decided to do that, but I still do radio shows. I do a radio show that is aired locally, but is on the iHeartRadio app that's all around the country. It's on Thursday mornings from 8 to 9, called Old School with Tony Segreto. I'm involved with the Orange Bowl committee. I'm on the football committee within the Orange Bowl committee. So I'm involved with, securing Orange Bowl games. And, I travel around for the Orange Bowl committee to different college football games. So I'm still involved there. I do stuff for the University of Miami, my alma mater. And I'm involved with our son's former school, Notre Dame, and our daughter's current school, Florida State University. So we stay involved, not on the air anymore, but we still stay involved. What I miss, what I thought would happen, and fortunately it hasn't, were the relationships. I built some just amazing relationships over the years with coaches and players and administrators and different, whether it was the NFL and NHL, no matter Olympic committees, whatever. And I've been able to maintain them. So probably the people that I work with, maybe I miss the most. The grind I don't miss, because we had a great, and I was blessed to do work in a period of time with just great storylines, great athletes, great teams, great moments, moments that will live on in infamy. So that's probably kind of where I stand now. I do miss the craft. Mark, I miss the craft of being able to go and execute the craft. I never thought much about the celebrity part of it. It never occurred to me. Because I never was in it for that reason. I loved the craft. I loved the execution of doing a game, whether it was play-by-play or color, doing the research on it, or being able to go on a national broadcast and execute a moment. So that's what I miss the most.
Beautifully put.
Jim, you have something?
Thank you.
I may. I guess first off, did you have an opportunity to get to know Don Shula at all? And do you have a favorite story?
Yes. Don Shula, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit, Jim. I don't know you very well, but hopefully we'll get to spend time together with a cup of coffee in person. We can talk about it.
I enjoy that.
Don Shula was one of my closest friends. I even have the day he died was a very difficult day for me, because I considered him part of my family. His son David, who's now the wide receivers coach at Dartmouth, and David played wide receiver at Dartmouth, and the head coach at Dartmouth, Buddy Tebens, was his quarterback. And after David had been unceremoniously let go as head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, he went on to work for his father's empire, all the restaurants, and he was the president of the Shula Restaurant Corporation. And David and I did some business things together, and I considered him a little brother, or a younger brother, not certainly bigger than me, a younger brother. And so that's, yes. So I got to know Shula extremely well, spent just a lot of time with him. I loved his humorous side. I loved, he and I had our moments when we were both in our careers. Sometimes he didn't like some of the things I said. I remember one time he called me into his office and just undressed me. I mean, just if any of you had ever seen Don Shula's tirades on the sideline, it was similar to that. And I sat there very quietly, and I listened to him go on and on and on and on and on. And then I stood up and I said, well, you know, we agree to disagree, Coach. And I'm sorry you feel that way. And he looked at me like, gosh, I didn't back down. I didn't get angry. I didn't yell back. And he sat down and he said, you know what? He goes, I may not have liked what you said, and I may have just lost it, and I probably shouldn't have. He said, but you know what? You do have the right to your opinion because you're out here every day. You watch every day. It's not like you're not here. And so that was just like a moment. But then we went on to become, after he retired, we went on to become friends. I want to tell you the kind of guy he was, and I'll tell you the kind of guy he was, and then I'll tell you a funny story. So he was in Philadelphia. We were in Philadelphia, and it was the day he won the game that would beat George Halas's record as the winningest coach in NFL history. His son David at the time was still the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. So as soon as the game was over, the Dolphins game was over, and Shula won, I did a national hit for NBC in the locker room with Coach Shula. So we were about 30 seconds from going on the air, and they brought Coach Shula into the staging area where I was going to do the interview. And he said, are we on yet? And I go, no. He pulls me over. He goes, the first question he asked me wasn't, what are you going to talk to me about? It wasn't, I'm so happy to become the winningest coach in NFL history. First thing he said to me is, how did David do today? And I said, he lost, Coach. And he had to step away. He was an amazing father, amazing husband. His first wife died, as you know, from breast cancer, and he went on to start a breast cancer foundation in her name, and then remarried, and a lovely woman as well, who took care of him until the day he died. But I'll tell you a funny story. He was so focused on football. Football was his only thing. Right? He could care less about anything else. Pop culture wasn't even in his realm. So he's in Ireland, and he's at a pub. And who's in the pub? And Mark, you'll appreciate this. Who's in the pub but Glenn Fry? And Glenn Fry is he's like a little kid, because Don Shula is like his favorite coach. Loves Don Shula. So he goes over and says, Coach, I am so sorry to bother you. I know you're probably with your family or with a couple of buddies and you're having a beer, but I had to come say hello. He goes, I am your biggest fan. Hi, I'm Glenn Fry of the Eagles. And Coach is being as, congenial as he possibly can. And he's going, well, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming over. And Glenn goes, listen, Coach, I'm going to leave you, but I just wanted to come and say hi. He says, listen, if you're in town for a while, you ought to come see us play. And Glenn walks away. And Shula turns to all these people and he goes, what the heck? I didn't know the Eagles were playing an exhibition game here in Ireland. He had absolutely no idea that Glenn Fry was with a rock group. So that just kind of gives you like a little insight into Don Shula and the kind of life he had. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I got Shula story after Shula story after Shula story that again, Jim, we will have over a cup of coffee for sure, and we will share that information.
I really appreciate that, and I won't monopolize your time, but
No.
yes, I will for a minute more.
You can ask another question, Jim. We're not on any time.
These Patriots fans, I have to listen to him year after year. But yeah, he always seemed like a class act from a distance, and that's so nice to hear. Thank you. Lastly, just your opinion. In '85, if the Dolphins don't get upset by the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, do they beat the Bears twice?
That's a tough thing to do, but I believe they do, because I believe that was a time when, what's interesting is when probably I'm trying to think of the coaches today that are like that. Belichick is, probably Peyton is, those two in particular. When you played the Dolphins back then, you didn't just play the Dolphins. You weren't just playing Marino. and Nat Moore and those guys in '85, right? You weren't just playing those guys. You were playing against Shula. So you were playing against that type of dynamic. So you were not only preparing your players and your game plan for what schematically was going to go on the field, right? What they were going to do scheme-wise, but you were also preparing how to combat the mind of Don Shula. And I think that was a tough combination to beat. It really was. And Shula, of all coaches, had the way to adapt. And when you think about his history and what made him, to me, still the greatest coach ever, is, he wins the Super Bowls early with a powerful running game with Zonka, Kick, and Mercury Morris, right?
Right.
I mean, what did Greasy throw in the Super Bowl where they won 17-0? What did Greasy throw? 12 passes.
Right.
Greasy retires. He winds up with like David Woodley, who's kind of like an option guy. He's kind of like the guys we see today, like Russell Wilson and guys like that. And so he sort of adapts to David Woodley, still has Don Strock as a backup, and is throwing Strock in to do the, regular backup kind of, the regular, pose and throw football quarterback. And then here comes 13, right? Here comes the greatest passer arguably of all time. Right. And he adapts to that. So I think that his mind, the way he worked, the way he prepared, his preparation, I spent enough time with him where to this day, my discipline, my time management is all based on what Shula used to do. My discipline in preparing, whether it was preparing for this Rotarian meeting or preparing for an event I have, coming up this week for the University of Miami, it was always going in totally prepared. One of the things Shula would hate you asking him was, were you surprised? Because he never went in feeling like he would ever be surprised at what was going on. That's how well prepared he was and his team was. So in answer to your question, as hard as it is to beat a team twice in the same year, I do believe they probably would have done it because if nothing else, they had their number and they had their psyche, because the Bears came in with this swagger that nobody could beat them. Nobody could overtake them. And here the Orange Bowl was electric. And for those of you who had, whether you're a Dolphin fan or not, if you want to hear an electric stadium and watch an electric game, you can put it on YouTube and go to 1985 Dolphins Bears and you will see an amazing moment in professional football.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Anyone else have a question?
Oh my gosh, don't be shy.
Jill, go ahead.
So I have to ask, are you going to write a book?
You've been about the 50th person to ask me that. I've been at, I probably should. In fact, just recently, the other day, a friend of mine has written a book that's very compelling. And he said, with all these stories you have, you should really write a book. Because in my children, you can imagine, and I didn't catch your first name.
Oh, Jill.
Jill, I did. Yeah. I'm sorry for that, Jill. My children to this day, there's my son went to Notre Dame, is not an athlete, but was involved was a football manager for the football program, right? And was with football for 4 years there, and a very high acumen for football and athletics. And our daughter is at Florida State. She's a softball player. And she just retired. She's still with Florida State as a team manager. And they're in girls softball, especially that I don't know if you've ever seen it. The fast pitch softball. It's a remarkable sport. Our daughter was a catcher, and just it's amazing. And there's a rule in girls softball: no rolling of the eyes. Right? Coaches say something to the girls: you can't roll your eyes, girls. If you do, you get kind of punished for it. But the reason I tell you that is because if I tell one more story to my children, they will roll their eyes, and there's no roll in the eyes when Dad tells stories. So
that's funny.
But yeah, I will tell you a quick one that you all will enjoy, I think. My very first interview, I was 18 years old, was with Jesse Owens, the great Olympian. Mm-hmm. And Jesse was in town representing a Scotch company. And we did the interview, and he said, "Young man," he said, "have you ever had a Scotch?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm from an Italian family. It's always been around, but I've never really kind of acquired a taste. I didn't really know much about it. He goes, well, how would you like me to teach you how to drink scotch? Now, I'm thinking to myself, I'm working. I finally got this job. See, at a high school, it was an interesting thing for me because at a high school, I was drafted to play baseball by the Houston Astros. And I had a baseball scholarship to play baseball in college. And I was offered an opportunity to work for NBC. It all happened and I was like 17 and a half years old. And it was like, wow, what am I going to do? Because when I was growing up, for those of you who love, I'll tell you one more after this. I either wanted to be a cowboy like Roy Rogers, or a baseball player like Mickey Mantle, or I wanted to be a sportscaster like Mel Allen. Those were the three things I wanted to do. Anyway, I chose the sportscaster route. So here I am, 18, and Jesse Owens asked me if I want to learn how to drink scotch. Well, you don't say no to Jesse Owens. No. We're at the Fontainebleau Hotel. And he takes me to the bar and they go, Mr. Owens, welcome. And Mr. Jesse goes, this is my new friend, Tony Segreto. I want to teach him how to drink scotch. He says, I want you to give it to us neat, on the rocks, with water, and with soda and a twist. And he lines up 4 drinks in front of me and starts teaching me how to drink it. In the meantime, he's telling me all the things he's writing about in his book, about what it was like for him to be an Olympian and how tough it was for him to be an Olympian. You know, and he tells the story how the night before his run, I'm sure all of you know this, I mean, you know, the gold medals, and, you know, here he is running in front of Adolf Hitler, and he gets a call from the president in the Olympic Village the night before he's going to run the 100 meters. And president says to him, listen, Jesse, and this is all documented in his book. When he's writing the book and he's telling me the story, he goes, listen, Jesse, you know, the weight of the free world is on your shoulders. I'm not going to, you know, mince words here. We need you to win this race. We need you to prove to the Aryan nation that they can't beat us. We want you to know that we're all pulling for you, that you're representing the United States. You're representing this flag. It's important to us that you win. And the president was going on and on and on. And Jesse's telling me the story, and I'm drinking. I got the neat, I got the rocks, and I'm like, this is like the coolest thing in the world. I'm sitting here with Jesse Owens, and the sad part is, although it was one of those moments where it's a snapshot of life. You know, there was no cell phone at the time where I could take like a selfie of he and I, like, you know, smiling and doing those things. So he says, he hangs up the phone from the president of the United States, and he's sitting there in his room all by himself, and he's thinking, you know, I'm sitting here in my room, and the president of the United States tells me how important it is for me to win this race for the free world, and that the entire country is rooting for me. Yet when I get home, regardless of whether I win or lose the race, I still have to sit in the back of the bus. I still have to drink out of a water fountain that says colored, and I still can't move into a neighborhood I want to move into. He obviously won the race. He won all these gold medals. And when he got back home, it's exactly what happened. In fact, when he won one of the biggest awards ever given to an athlete, in order to get up to the ballroom, he was only allowed to get up to the ballroom by using the freight elevator. So that's just kind of a snapshot of some of the things and some of the stories. That's why my kids go, oh, not another one, Dad, not another one. So Jill, thank you for the question.
Anyone else?
Anybody from New York here? Anybody from New York who grew up in the New York metropolitan area, upstate New York or anything? Or, well, I urge you.
Art, we have one, Art.
We have Art. Hey, Art. You know, I urge you to for those of you, Kevin kind of teamed this up for me, but one of the things I am doing now, and I'd love you to visit us, is the baby boomer report. And this is what I did was I decided that it was time that I'm 70 years old now. And I decided it was time to sort of engage some some baby boomers of my age and sort of look to inspire them. I try to stay as active as I can, and all of you are obviously staying active, which is a wonderful thing. It keeps you young. And so I decided to launch this podcast and talk to people and friends of mine who are still going strong in their 70s and early 80s, who are still active, who are still providing great value and wisdom to people around the world and around the country. So I launched this. So I urge you to go, because from the New Yorkers, I'm sure you'd recognize the name Cousin Brucey, probably one of the most iconic disc jockeys of all time. I mean, to this day, McCartney calls him just great stories. But my very first interview, which is on the podcast, is with Cubby O'Brien, who was the very first Mouseketeer with Annette Funicello on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah.
He was a drummer, and his father was a great drummer. His father was a drummer who played with Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa and that whole group of people. And he taught Cubby how to become a drummer. So Cubby was a drummer on the Mickey Mouse Club, and then they taught him how to dance and taught him how to sing or whatever. And when he aged out of that, he was contacted by Lawrence Welk, because Lawrence Welk wanted to create a children's orchestra for the Lawrence Welk Show. So Cubby was the drummer for the Lawrence Welk Show. And then soon after that, while doing the Lawrence Welk Show, Carol Burnett was on and noticed him and said to Lawrence, and Cubby was now getting older, I would love to have an orchestra like this on my show. Can I get Cubby to come over? So Lawrence asked him, and Cubby went to the Carol Burnett Show. While on the Carol Burnett Show, the Carpenters made an appearance. And the Carpenters wanted to get Karen away from the drums and more out in front. And they approached Cubby, and Cubby was the drummer for the Carpenters for 13 years or 11 years until Karen passed away. He then went on to do work with Ann Margaret. He is on every Andy Williams Christmas album as a drummer. And to this day, and as soon as COVID breaks, obviously, he did it up until COVID, he toured the country with Bernadette Peters.
Oh.
So just great stories. Talks about Walt Disney and his birthday parties, and how that they would get fined $20 if they lost their mouse ears. So I interviewed him. I interviewed Cousin Brucey. I interviewed Bucky Dent. I don't know if any Yankee fans here, probably all Red Sox fans. And I know, I understand what his middle name is. I know what his middle name is to those people who live in Boston. Bucky and I talk every morning. We played high school football against each other, high school baseball against each other, actually football too, but baseball against each other. And then we traveled with teams. He was on a different competing team in terms of what you could do, like the A guys, so the guys who were draftable. And then he opted for the Yankees. I opted for NBC, and we've stayed. In fact, the year that he hit the home run to beat the Red Sox, he was on the disabled list the first half of that year. He lived with me in South Florida because I was single and he was single at the time, and we lived together during that period. But we talked to him about hitting the home run and what it was like to play with the Bronx Zoo. Interviewed Julio Iglesias Jr. and Tito Puente Jr., both of whom are now playing their father's music for baby boomers. And Tito Puente talks about his father knowing Desi Arnaz and what that was like. So we have a number of, and then a local one that has been just gone through the roof with people paying attention and wanting to listen to it. I interviewed the owners of Big Eyes Bakery. And I'm sure all of you have been to Big Eyes, and you know Bridget and Paul, and they're great people. And I'm sure you know their story. Their story is an amazing story. Both police officers in Manhattan, and they moved to Ludlow and they opened up a bakery. Who would have ever thought? And here they are in their late 60s, and what an inspiring story. So you'll hear that, and Cousin Brucey talking about how one night how Elvis would come up to his studio all cloaked over so they wouldn't recognize him when he came up the elevators to his New York studios, and one day just who popped in but Jackie Gleason and Bob Hope. So I urge you to go on and listen to those stories. I think you'll enjoy them. I think you'll have a lot of fun with them. We have some new ones coming up. So some of them have video components to them, some of them just audio. But again, it's the babyboomerreport.com. And I'm also around for those of you who and if you want to, Kevin, if people found this interesting and want to have me back, I'd be more than happy to come back. I enjoyed the time together. I know you're kind of running on time. Everybody's got business to do, but
yeah, we're about out. But a quick one for you. Any inside scoop on who you have coming up on Baby Boomer?
We've been talking back and forth with Casey and the Sunshine Band. We've been talking with Joel Gray a little bit. Trying to, if any of you have inspiring stories around the area that you want to funnel to me, please, it's Tony at the babyboomerreport.com. And I'm trying to find, there's a group of people who live in a yak in the middle. I'm trying to remember where in Vermont, but they make like the biggest high-end bicycles in the world. Bicycles that cost like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or more, and they're getting all these orders during COVID from these people in Japan, and they live in this yak in Vermont. I got, this is a great story, great storytelling. So those are some of the things, and then we still have our radio show that we do, and we're trying to do some podcast around that, and still do our sports thing. So. It's been a very fun time, and we love being here in Vermont this time of year. So it's great.
All right, thank you very much.
For those of you who don't know, I urge you strongly to hold Kevin's feet to the fire and have him cook for you, because he's a remarkable chef. I cannot tell you how many times we'd go to Echo Lake and ask him to cook things, and his duck was over the top. And
okay, so I have to pay you the money now.
Sitting on the porch of the Echo Lake and having a beverage or two with him is quite a delightful time. So I urge you to ask him to make you something.
All right, thanks for the kind words, Anthony. Appreciate it. Best of Rose, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Have a great rest of the day.
Okay, bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bless you.
You're welcome. Thank you.